Marvel fans, there are really interesting rumors circling out there on the internet about one of the post-credit scenes for Spider-Man No Way Home. It's involving Venom, and people are saying it might be controversial.
You have the right to remain silent!
Let's break it down. What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Adventures Tower as per usual, and it seems like another day and even more news about Spider-Man No Way Home. And again, this one's kind of controversial. Some people are saying this is another boner situation like what we got with Evan Peters in WandaVision.
Boner.
So let's get into it. I do want to say slight spoilers, but we don't know if this is 100% true. Treating it as rumor for now. And this is mostly because a lot of the usual suspects, a lot of the people that I trust in the leaking, scooping community are actually not talking about this, or at least not talking about this publicly. Several days ago, I did see something happen where Grace Randolph was talking about Venom and the scene in which he will be in and how it's super important for Marvel and Sony, but she doesn't really expound upon it from there. But it's safe to say that it is making its way around there in the scooping community. I saw this pop up on Reddit. There was a big thread going out about this. And right here, I have this pulled up. Now, this is from user Pomo Gemma from Star Wars Newsnet, okay? So I don't know a ton about this person. I've seen them on other threads, and they do seem to have a lot of sources, and they do seem to be in the know. And so, again, take this with a grain of salt. We're not sure if this is real, but I want to talk about this thing with Venom, and I also want to talk about how this might tie into something to do with more Andrew Garfield Spider-Man after Spider-Man No Way Home. It's crazy. So here we go. I'm just going to read right here from the post. It says, if what I've heard is right, then there's a little bit of context that I can add to this scene and how it plays out. It starts with Eddie and Venom at a bar at the MCU version of the resort they were staying at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage, watching the news while enjoying refreshments. They opted to have their vacation instead of seeking Spider-Man out. And so they talk about all the superheroes that exist in the universe that they've migrated to, while proposing a superhero name of their own that sounds a lot like a Liefeldian anti-hero from the 1990s. They also express excitement at the prospect of being a part of a universe full of other superheroes, only to get yeeted back into their home courtesy of the spell playing out in the movie proper, with some symbiote residue, read not the entire symbiote, but a sentient portion of it separate from Venom left behind, teasing an eventual black suit story arc with Spider-Man in the MCU. It seems like something trollish, but it also feels like something that Sony would do in their Venom movies, and we all know that they'll do a crossover one day anyway. Okay, so again, this will likely happen in a post-credit scene, but what they're saying is that like Venom and Eddie are going to be sitting there watching what's going down on TV, remarking about the MCU and how cool it is that they're in a universe with all these different characters, only to be sent right back into the Sony universe after the spell actually goes the right way in the film. So what this kind of means, it sort of hints that the spell that gets botched that brings in the other villains will be fixed. Perhaps that's what we see at the end of the movie, with Doc Strange getting on top of the Statue of Liberty to actually complete the real spell, sending everybody back to their respective home universes. So Venom and Eddie are apparently going to be chilling there, and then they just get sucked back into the universe, leaving a part of the symbiote behind, which they will sort of tease out as to be something that will interact with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So here's the deal. We obviously get a big tease at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage. There's a big post-credit scene that seems to tease Venom coming into the MCU. We've been speculating and theorizing and talking about this since that thing came out. And now it seems like they're just going to sort of Uno reverse that and put Tom and Venom back into the Sony universe, but they're going to be aware of the Marvel universe. I don't know, man. You can kind of see why some people are saying this is a boner move, just like what they did with Ralph Boner, meaning that the post-credit scene in Venom, it's really not what it seemed to be.
No. Come fix this.
But I would argue it's not exactly the same thing, because that character, and I guess those two characters, will have gone through a situation in which they are aware of A Spider-Man, B, other universes where there are many other heroes, and then they're going to be yanked back into their universe. That is very different and will likely lead to some crazy things for them. Now, there are two main things to talk about here and speculate about. Number one is going to be the Tom Holland thing, so I want to get into that. But again, the other side of this, which I think you're going to want to stay for in this video, it's really interesting, and it has to do with Andrew Garfield and a lot of the buzz that we might be getting even more Andrew Garfield Spider-Man after Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay, so it's pretty wild.
Hey, my name is Spider-Man. You can call me Webhead. You can call me amazing. Just don't call me late for dinner. You get it?
So the deal is they're going to be setting up Tom Holland getting the symbiote suit, which is interesting because a lot of insiders kind of been teasing that out over the past couple of weeks. To me, it didn't totally make sense. I was like, what are they going to do with Eddie and Venom? That's a huge play for Sony. We know Sony and Marvel are playing nice together, but if you just took Venom off of Eddie Brock and had him just chilling in the MCU, that wouldn't be that cool. And without the Venom symbiote, it wouldn't be that cool to put him back in the Sony universe anyway. So they sort of split the difference, and apparently there's going to be a sentient version of the Venom symbiote, the black symbiote, that is left behind, which will interact with Peter Parker. Now, I actually really like this for Tom Holland's Spider-Man because after this film, No Way Home, he's going to have gone through a lot of different situations, and we think he's going to suffer a lot in this movie and experience a great deal of loss. And moving forward, he's going to have that big chip on his shoulder. He's going to be thinking of things differently, and he will have interactions with other Peter Parkers from other universes. This is a very interesting time to introduce the symbiote and perhaps have some of those classic comic book storylines take place in the MCU with Tom Holland, where he gets the symbiote suit, he feels that power, starts to feel in control again after being in sort of a dark place, and then ultimately understands that the symbiote is corrupting him and rejects it, giving the symbiote Spider-Man-like powers, which could either interact with Venom down the line when Sony and Spider-Man cross back over, or could allow for a Venom within the MCU to exist. We could get a different version of Eddie Brock in the MCU, getting the Venom symbiote. We could even see something set up with Flash Thompson Venom in the MCU as well.
Oof, I don't know. I gotta check my calendar first. I got a hot date with Black Widow coming up.
I guess one of the things I'm most curious about is, like, will we hear a voice for this symbiote? Is it going to be sort of adolescent and then eventually learn to speak? Will Tom Hardy voice the Venom symbiote in the MCU? If all of this is true, I don't know. It's pretty wild. But now let's talk about Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. There's some weird rumors and rumblings, and nobody's come right out and said it yet. But a lot of folks are teasing out the possibility of more Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in the future. Toby's like kind of older, very unlikely that he'd want to come back and play a lot of Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield really seems to have an affinity for the role and just love the whole experience of being Spider-Man. So it's possible that Sony could take Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker and put him into some kind of universe with all of the different Sony characters and build all of that stuff up to eventually cross back over with Tom Holland in a Spider-Verse situation. Because remember, in some of the interviews after Let There Be Carnage came out, or even leading up to it, Tom Hardy expressed, all this, excitement about the possibilities of what you could do in the future, right? There's the Venomverse, there's the Spider-Verse, there's the multiverse. And we've heard that Sony has big plans to do multiverse Spider-Man stuff, whether it's just in their animated stuff or in live action, yet to be fully determined. There's also rumors of this big 5-film contract for Tom Holland, where he'll do mostly MCU stuff, but then do a couple of Sony projects as well. So if Sony's trying to build up the Sinister Six and continue to build that kind of a thing over in their universe, it would make a lot of sense to have a Spider-Man over there. It is possible that Andrew Garfield would remain Spider-Man, or I guess after No Way Home remaining Spider-Man, and be the Spider-Man for these different villains in the Venom universe. I would actually really like that, as I'm a big fan of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Those movies were really hit or miss. They're kind of a mixed bag, but it's a really interesting take on the character, and I'd love to see more of him. So I'm kind of here for it. They could also do a new Spider-Man over at Sony, or they could even introduce Miles Morales over at Sony. There's all kinds of crazy possibilities, but I think eventually down the line, regardless of what is going to happen in the separate universes, this crossover between Tom Holland and Tom Hardy is still going to happen. we just might see a little sidetracked thing happen for a little bit here with maybe a different Spider-Man, hopefully Andrew Garfield. I would kind of be here for it. And again, some people are teasing out about this, nothing concrete at all, just some teases by some of the insiders, but I would really, really like it.
I'll be right there.
There's no place like home.
Now, the last little bit of speculation I want to do with regards to this is speculating about how, even though it seems like things will be set right, or at least partially set right in Spider-Man No Way Home, we do believe that there will still be some craziness going on in the multiverse, and that will play out in different ways. So, number one, in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, there are rumors that Sony characters will be seen in that film as well. Whether this is just a visit or a cameo of sorts for some of these characters, maybe like a Vulture, maybe like Venom himself or something like that. There's just still a ton of different mystery going on here, and I actually don't believe it's as clear-cut as the spell being totally and fully responsible for all the different villains coming back into the multiverse and then leaving our MCU universe. I think there's still more to it, and so regardless of when it happens, I think you will totally see Tom Hardy, Tom Holland have an interaction together. I think the idea of doing Black Suit Venom with Tom Holland is absolutely epic. I would love to see Andrew Garfield continue as Spider-Man, maybe in Multiverse of Madness or over there in Sony or something to that degree. But there's just still so many fun possibilities for this. I know some fans might view this as like Sony being Sony, really toying with our emotions, pulling us back and forth on this chain. And it does kind of seem like now all this Tyrese stuff and all the ideas of these movies being in the MCU are not true. Like, if this ends up being the case, then it means a lot of those plans were shifted. But to be fair, in this same Reddit thread where they're talking about this, the same source indicates this might not have always been Sony's plan. Sony's plan was to sort of soft reboot everything into theirs, make it seem like it was the MCU. Feige has likely finangled some kind of a situation now to make it make sense and to tie it together with his big multiversal plans. So Sony must be getting something out of this, whether or not it's just a couple of appearances with Tom Holland coming over eventually, or their own Spider-Man stuff that Feige will help produce, possibly with Andrew. Regardless, there's got to be a cool exchange going on there, and I'm still excited to see how it all plays out. So there you have it, folks. Controversy ahead with the rumored post-credit scene for Spider-Man No Way Home involving Eddie Brock and Venom. What do you make of this whole story? Please let us know in the comment section below. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to our channel to see more of our content. Pop up in your recommended video and go check out the live streaming channel, man. Watch parties are back. We're doing watch parties for Hawkeye, doing breakdowns of Hawkeye. We have a ton of fun over on the live streaming channel, so make sure you go check that out as well. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.